I want to do this with all of you guys today. Your relationship with your inner child, personally. We're going to make it a little more personal. Most people look at children and go, fuck that, until they have them. Now, I'll tell you the people that abuse their children. It's the ones that are never intentional to understand that they are parts of themselves. And that's an opportunity for them to grow exponentially. An opportunity for you to do so. There was something I noticed that often people that had kids when they did these programs did a lot better than people who didn't. You know, people that also had a very strong religious foundation do a lot better than people who don't. And you want to know why? They have something to work with that grounds them in reality. Most people's reality exists up here. It's their figmented kids. It's this wife that is an internal being that quite literally does everything for you. Nothing is rooted in reality, and I think it's very problematic for a lot of men. Most men are not raised to be fathers, brothers, or husbands. They are raised to be world-class players who run away from responsibility. I'm sorry, if you want to stay Peter Pan, keep doing those things. You become a respectable man when you're somebody that owns up to the consequences of their decisions. I spoke about this with Dylan the other day, and I said, you know, it's really courage when a girl can fuck you the way that you like. But it's not so courageous when she won't be there when she gets pregnant and she heads over to Planned Parenthood. Is she as courageous anymore? Was that an act of courage that she did in the bedroom, or just something that she put in a vacuum so that she could experience it without fear? I often notice that most people don't have a real honest relationship with sex, because if you guys really want to heal, your goal with sex is to build a bridge towards connection and children, the 2 C's. And you're like, oh no, please, not those things. Those things scare the fuck out of me. Let me tell you, it's going to change the way that women respond to you. It'll also change the way that men respond to you, right? What is it that all men want? And I notice this. They want a mommy. That's not a mom yet. And it's like, well, what are you guys? You're not dads yet. How about you be daddy? And that's what every girl wants. And so there's a really fun thing I want you guys to try, and it's your relationship with yourself as a child. Baby photos. Sounds kind of cliche, but I promise you this. If you find yourself adorable as a kid, that this was the best thing that ever came into planet Earth, you will start having those conversations with the girls that you go out with, and you'll start questioning who you sleep with, and you'll start increasing your standard. So there's something I often notice is most men don't have a sexual standard, and they don't really have a responsible life. Their life is just about high-class survival. Does that sound about right? At the end of the day, what are you trying to build? Like, let's be really honest. And you know, I want you guys to challenge this framework, because it should scare you. But at the same time, it also shouldn't scare you, because it's the most natural thing that you can do. It's literally find a girl you like and kind of go through with it. Let me go ahead and lower this a little bit. It's a little loud. Hey, Sonos, lower volume by 10%. Hey, Sonos, lower volume by 5%. All right, wonderful.
So, Sonos, play fart music.
Play fart music. Yeah, there it is. So, look, this is going to help you guys in a lot of ways. And the reason why I know it's going to help you guys in a lot of ways is because you're not going to be running from yourself anymore. You'll be connecting your animal to your values, and then your animal will become something respectable. Masculinity is a very powerful emotion. And I often notice that most men are not in touch with it. They're in touch with what it's like to simulate it. And that'll work. Yeah, if you simulate anything over a long period of time, you'll feel that way. But genuinely, why not on a core level to where you don't have to reinforce this all the time? How responsible are you? How much of what you say do you follow through with? And let's be honest, the idea of questioning whether your life has meaning is something very frightening. Because, you know, Ed, your friend, I'm sure is well-off, successful, has a hot girlfriend, right? But
Wife, actually.
A wife? How old is she?
Same age, but still kind of a slow show. I'm not sure if you remember that actress Angie Everhart looks just like her.
Interesting. So, what's the whole point of today? The whole point of today is that we actually really tackle things like responsibility and fulfillment. I want you guys to not just only live lives to where you can interact with the things around you, but generally to where you have a really connected life, to where you're really fulfilled. And I noticed that most people, and this is something very interesting happening nowadays, is that the only people having children are Orthodox Jews or really religious Christians. Everybody else is putting conditions on their children and sending them right out to the system that they came out of. And you think that they're going to be better off than you are? You guys remember, the more distance that you create from your values over generations, the less likely your children are to do things that your grandparents did. There was the reason why your grandparents had you and came out here and had their children is because they were connected to the things that they were doing, and they understood that family is the most powerful thing. You know, Ed, you're modeling the character Tony, Sopranos, and I think that's a great character to model. But he is a family man. And I found this very interesting, is that most men, and this is usually what I say to women, is really be wary of men in their late 30s that are clean-shaven without children. And the reason why I say that is because there's a part of them that had an opportunity to interact with things that would have developed and grown them, and instead they made another choice, which is to run away from those decisions. And everybody has had that decision at one point or another. I had it at 22. I didn't know what was going to happen. She just didn't get pregnant. But long story short is like, why is it that we want to give ourselves conditions in the bedroom, conditions with the women that we're with, conditions in how we express ourselves? And I think, what exactly are we all working towards? A lot of the time people immediately just go, oh, it's this career, and then family comes second. I want you to understand that if it does not support your family, your career is shit. So let's kind of get into it. I want to see a lot of negative resistance that people have to responsibility. You want to know what kept me broke for a long time? I knew I wanted a big family. But I told myself that I'd magically become rich. Do you want to know when I started making money? When I started removing all negative associations that I had to responsibility. Do you guys want to know what starts to make you think broke? When you have a fear of responsibility. You don't think that it's a lot of responsibility to be a multimillionaire? You don't think it's a lot of responsibility to be working with people that are actually emotionally unstable? You don't think that it's a lot of responsibility to be putting yourself out there and to be speaking your mind as much as you can, as honestly as you can? Oh, there's plenty of responsibility that goes into that. And that's the thing that a lot of you guys are missing here. My life was absolute shit when I was 21. It took me 6 cups of coffee to wake up in the morning. To finish my day is what it took. It took me 6 cups of coffee to finish my day. Training people was absolutely lonesome. The way that I'd get through the day is I'd scroll through Instagram or I'd watch porn in the fucking bathroom so I could feel something that would stimulate me. After that would happen, I'd find myself going home with a list of expectations that I have on God so that I could make my life bearable. And I would never be satisfied by anybody that was around me, and anybody that I met would never ever meet my needs. Eventually, this progressed until a point to where I asked myself one question, and this is the question that changed my life. Are you a good person? I want you to write that down. If you don't have something to write it down, just remember it, because it'll echo in your skull. Now, we're not saying is this relative to the Catholic Church or the Jewish temple or your community. No, this is only between you and God. And I want you guys to understand something. I had this, and it made me go pale. For about 1 week, I was mute. My clients, when I was training them, looked at me and they said, hey, brother, are you okay? Do you want to know what I said to make myself feel good about myself? Oh, I give charity. I'm righteous. I give charity. You know what the fuck? I wish people didn't give charity. Do you want to know what I learned about charity? It's the worst thing that you can give somebody who's broke. Give them advice and give them help. Show them how they could fish. It's the best thing you could do for somebody who's suffering financially. It's like giving money to somebody that every time they touch it, it turns to shit. Tell them their problem, that everything that they come close to falls apart. So genuinely, start off with that question. Am I a good person? Sure, you're maybe not a bad one. And that's kind of what I heard. It wasn't easy for me. And it was a voice that I heard in the morning. Worst thing that you could ever hear. Voices in the morning, before you're prepped to fight them. Scare the fuck out of me. My life was about paying the bills. My life was about meeting the girl. And my life was about finally getting all of the things that my parents told me that I should get. And I always thought to myself, well, I am responsible. I do these things. I am doing my best. No, I was surviving. Do you want to know how I was surviving? I wasn't a good person. Survivalists aren't good people. How could they be? They're just accidental. What makes somebody a good person is that they choose to do things that are good for themselves. So this starts with you and ends with you. Your family's about you, your wife's about you, the job's about you. All of this responsibility you take is about you. And ultimately, at the end of the day, you're left with 2 alternatives. You can never see what you're made of, or you can put yourself out there, and for the first time in your life, although maybe you'll fail, you can know that you tried. So I woke up this one morning, I heard that sentence, and something shifted in my life. I was really praying. I was praying for a long time. I was praying for a change. I couldn't continue living like this. I was training people since I was 13. It's been almost fucking 9 years I was doing that shit. The thing is, it's interesting, is I knew I wanted more. I mean, isn't that the whole point? Don't we all want more? But the thing is we look to life and we don't give to it. It's a really beautiful quote I wanted to kind of quote for you guys, and it was, what you seek, you must bring. My whole life, what was I waiting for? Life to happen to me. The girl to walk in. My friends to propose a big trip. And I'd say yes. Maybe one day a client walks in and goes, hey, I want you to be my full-time. We'll do a yearly package. And the money comes, right? It was like I was just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Not only do you become miserable, you become entitled. And then you become aggressive. And if you don't become aggressive, you become chronically depressed. I know what that's like. I had no outlet for my sexual expression other than porn or making out with, or actually getting blowjobs from girls that I don't respect at all. Because that was my method of doing it. I didn't even kiss them. It was really fucked. So anyways, I'd wake up every day, I'd have 6 cups of coffee, and I'd kind of realize, like, what the fuck is going on? And I mentioned this a lot. It's called unleashing, right? And it's going from the 1 cylinder you're driving your car with to 12. Isn't that what we want to do? And I want you guys to write this down if you can, which is, if I had an opportunity to have all of my needs met, or to see what I'm made of, what would you pick? It'll tell me a lot about how you're raised.
Can you repeat that one more time?
If you had an opportunity to have all of your needs met, as in bills paid, money there, girl there, security, or to see what you're made of, to see what you're capable of doing with the life that you have, with none of the security, what would you choose? Anybody, go for it. I want to kind of hear what you guys would say about it.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I kind of already did that. And maybe because I was still young and naive and reckless still, but, you know, some of you guys know, like, I started hustling drugs, you know, and goddamn, you know, like me and Naftali said, like, you know, I really love that freedom. And that was probably one of the more intoxicating aspects of that lifestyle. It was just freedom, absolute freedom. I'm kind of living the alternative now, where I have a lot of security, and it's weird. There's positives to both, there's cons to both. But that life of freedom, I find myself longing for sometimes. Does that answer your question?
Well, here's the thing, right? You were meeting your needs by doing something that allowed you to meet your needs that perhaps was not something you actually connected to, but what you connected to was the freedom, not so much the actions, right? So we were talking about that on a different level, but I want you to understand that it's like, oh, I've already made that choice. No, you haven't. You're still alive.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? You're still alive. You haven't seen what you're made of. And I was left with this opportunity presented before me, and I remember I went downstairs, and my friend was hanging out with my brother at the time. And I didn't know he wasn't my friend at the time. He was just some guy sitting there. And I still had that thing in my head playing on repeat. Are you a good person? What have you done for yourself? What have you done for yourself? And I want to really just provoke you guys today, because I really honestly mean it. Like, I was afraid of everything across the board. I would tell myself I wanted a family and kids. No, I didn't want a family and kids. What I wanted to do was run. What I wanted was a harem of chicks in Paris. I didn't really connect to that idea. I said it so that I can blend in. Do you understand that? I could blend in. When somebody would ask me that question about what I really want, do you think I told them the truth? Do you want to know what the truth was? Oh, I want a girl in my bed every night. Different color, different taste, different height, different size. Every day. That's what I want. Oh, I don't want kids with any of them. But instead, what I tell people is, oh yeah, I want to be married. I want to have children. Did I? Fuck no, I didn't. Because I asked myself a question. What do I think of my mom? Do I think that she's like the kind of thing that I'd want to be with? The answer was fuck no. I want like the foundation, but none of the bullshit, right? It was like you're conditionally trying to look at something and manipulate it. But ultimately, I'd say these things so that I could fit in. Well, why? It was the easiest thing I could say in my family. And it's also a great way to get people to feel sympathy for me. Because every time I wasn't married and didn't have kids, what would my parents say? You're doing great, it's okay, one day. So I get the approval from my parents, and I go out there and live my bachelor life. But really, I didn't connect to that or the other, so I go downstairs and I see my friend. He's smoking a joint. I didn't even know him. He was like watching a fucking Quentin Tarantino film. And he tells me, your tiger's locked in a cage. And I was super sensitive at the time, and I wanted to punch him in the face. I was like, who the fuck would say that? But as I just said, who the fuck would say that, he doubles down and he tells me another insulting thing. He tells me, you're not real. You're like Tyler Durden. You're a figment of your brother's imagination. You don't exist. I was out of words. I never had somebody speak to me that way. Do you want to know what I wanted to tell him? You don't know who the fuck I am. I could do A, B, C, D, and E if I wanted to. And I found that interesting that my ego said that if I wanted to. Do you guys ever find yourself saying that? If I wanted to be a millionaire, I'd be one right now. If I wanted to have a six-pack abs, I'd have them. If I wanted to go ahead and be with a supermodel, I'd have one. Do you understand the bullshit of that statement? It's like you've never even tried. So how the fuck could you say if you wanted to? And it's very easy for you to say that, and it's very difficult for you to be it. And that's your ego. Your ego inflates the situation that you're in. So I go downstairs. He tells me those things. I go fucking pale. And I just tell him, tell me more. Why don't you? I said shut the fuck up to my ego for the first time in my life because I was having nightmares every night. At 21 years old, I felt older than I ever have. I was looking at the fucking corners of my hairline, and that was what my life was dictated by. If it went up or if it looked fuller. If these lines kind of looked like how they were when I was 19. I was looking at every fucking little detail of myself. And it was like things were changing. Oh, I didn't like that. I wanted to stay as young as I could. Do you know why? Do you want to know why youth felt so good for me? Because I knew I can still fuck off. But do you guys want to know what hell is? Doing the same thing every day and getting older and feeling no progress. That's what hell is. So I got to experience that a little bit. So right now, I was praying to God looking for answers, and I recommend that you guys do that. Crazy things start to happen. You start to be crazy people. But you just have to be open. And I noticed that the one thing that stops people from being open is your ego. So the next thing is he comes over for Shabbat, and I give him a big hug. We sit down in the studio, and we're talking with each other. You want to know what he tells me? He puts his hand on my shoulder, and he looks at me with like really wide eyes, and he goes, you're either dumb as fuck, or you lie to yourself every day. And I didn't say another word to him for the rest of the day. I had my fucking head down to the floor. It was like a flashbang from Call of Duty was thrown, but it was for a 24-hour period. I couldn't see or hear anything. I see him later at the gym after Shabbat. And I go up to him, I said, dude, thank you for being a friend to me. And he's like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. But he didn't give me compassion after it. He's like, I meant everything that I said. I think it's ridiculous that a guy like you chooses to run from himself every damn day. And then I realized that, holy shit, I'm running from myself. Because if I wasn't running from myself, at least I know the answer. I'm either a bad person or a good one. But the fact that I'm not a bad one tells me I'm half-assing my decisions. Now I have to trust myself in order to be a good one. Because in order to be a good man, you need to be an extraordinarily capable man. And I said, well, what do I do with the capacity that I have? I run. I run. Do you understand how deeply ingrained survival goes? It goes so much into a point to where you think you're living a good life, but really you have brakes on the whole fucking time. And you're looking left and right and looking for somebody to fill your space quickly. Because the scariest thing to you is actually trying. So a few things happened to me in my life after that were really fascinating. There was a friend of mine that I went to the beach with the next day. And I noticed something in me woke up. And isn't that what we really want? We want to wake up. Guys, just to be honest with you, I haven't felt this kind of despair, not that kind of despair that I felt when I was 21. When I felt that at 21, I felt constant agony in my body. I had to exercise it out like a lunatic because there was so much pain and energy in my body. And that's why I became a really good fucking bodybuilder, because it was really easy for me to get that shit out of me, but I'd feel it all the time inside of me. And when I'd get physical injury, there was an unsurmountable amount of confidence gone, everything gone. All just because I have one knee injury. So there's something interesting is that as it started to progress, I started to notice that a lot of my friends started to dwindle out. I didn't have the same friends. I started really gravitating towards him and asking myself a question. How much am I holding back? So ask yourself that. Are you guys holding back? Genuinely, are you holding back? And I often notice that there's this thing on a psychological level. I wanted to kind of do the homework with you guys so you guys can understand how this works, is we create negative associations to the person that we want to become. So actually what ends up happening is we push the things that we want away, and the things that actually prevent us from becoming the things that we want, we invite. Sound very familiar? So what I actually notice is that All of these things came around one thing. The integration of your shadow, I talk about that a lot and about how important it is to unleash this inner animal. I also realized how much we say no to life and to the responsibility of the person that we want to be surmasses all of the responsibility that you have right now. So perhaps the difference between who you want to be and who you are is the amount of responsibility that you're willing to bear voluntarily, okay? Do you want to know somebody ruins their life? Knock up a girl by accident. Do you want to know how you start to feel love and fulfillment? Get a girl you love pregnant. Same action, different intention. One is an accident, right? One is an intention.